Afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to do a quick review of the Nottingham Forest game, a look ahead to the next round, bit of my feedback on the Rashford video, and then look ahead to City. The parallels from 1990 continue in the FA Cup. Obviously, it was another 1-0 win against Nottingham Forest. It was a ball from the right-hand side which bounced and our attacking player headed. All the same sort of similarities. It's quite weird how football does that sometimes. Thought we were all right. It was with the team that we had out there, that was probably the best that we could do. And when I saw the team, I feared the worst. So I think it's a really good result. We looked too easy to turn defensively. All it needed was a ball in behind in the channels, and we were turned quite easily. Luckily, they just had a pace merchant up front, which he had very little else about him. They had Origi who did bits and pieces. I thought Alanga looked probably their most threatening player, and we did make a lot of good recovery runs and recovery tackles, so we got away with it. I think against a better team we would have struggled, but we weren't playing against a better team, so that's fine. Amrabat was interesting in the left back role. He didn't really just play as a typical left back. I thought he had quite a hybrid role, really, which we see a lot of Premier League teams using fullbacks in a hybrid way these days, and we don't typically, I don't think. But he was making quite dynamic runs. He was taking Forest players where they didn't want to go. He wasn't just abandoning his position. It was I think, a tactic, and one that I was quite interested to see. He covers. He's not quick, and yet he covers ground quickly. And on the ball, he wasn't great. I have to say, thought he looked quite rusty, and his carelessness on the ball led to a few sticky situations for us. But he gave a very different dynamic in that position to, for example, Lindelof, who just stands in the left-back position because it's not his position. He doesn't know it. He doesn't look confident in it. He couldn't do anything other than just stand there, really, and be almost like two arms and two legs in the left-back position. Amrabat gave us a lot more than that, and I think in the absence of anyone else being fit, I'd certainly like to see him there again on Sunday. The wingers are infuriating because they just do the same thing all the time. They either cut inside and try and shoot, or dribble into trouble. We very rarely create an overload. We very rarely see the wingers arrive in different positions where you wouldn't expect them to be. The structure of the attack is so basic. It is very much you play left, you play right, you play centre. No one seems to kind of interweave with each other. There's no cohesion or understanding. You don't see them get to the byline and then get back onto their better foot and stand one up to the back post. You don't see them get into a dangerous position and put balls into that corridor of uncertainty too often. You don't see them arrive at the back post and score a tap in. It's just very much the same stuff over and over again. And then for me, you have to look at the coach. I've said this before. It seems that maybe at United, because they're United players, the coach almost thinks, well, they don't need coaching the basics. But if the players are making the same mistakes over and over and over and over again, I assume they're mistakes. Maybe they're being told to do that. I don't know. But it's certainly not effective. If they're doing things that are ineffective over and over again, surely you would call that out and challenge them to do something differently. And if they either are incapable of doing that differently or aren't listening to you, then you don't play them and give someone else a chance. It's just rubbish. Very, very predictable. Rashford thought was all right. Came short for the ball. Made what I would say were kind of like nominal sprints back when we lost possession, but almost like, when you see a sub come on quite late and the camera pans to them and they absolutely leg it onto the pitch and start doing all these directions to make themselves look like they're important. It was a bit like that. He was running in the rough direction of the ball, but he never effectively pressed, or it wasn't an organised press. It wasn't effective. It didn't lead to us winning the ball back or forcing the defender into making a mistake. It was just sprinting in the right direction, but at least he was sprinting. The big thing I would criticise him for is that he showed no appetite to get into the box when there was the odd time when Dalot made an overlapping run for Anthony to put the ball in. It was always McTominay that was in there. It was always him busting a gut. You can see it in the camera frame. Rashford's just jogging. He's not even in the box, or he's hanging around near the edge of the box. And that's lack of appetite. You compare it to Leeds away last season around this sort of time of year, if I remember rightly. He scored the winner. Luke Shaw put a fantastic cross in, and the header was something like what Ronaldo would do. And you look at Rashford. He's pretty stacked. He's a well-built lad. He's pretty tall. He's strong. He's a great header against Leeds that won us the game. And that was in the time when he was on a hot streak and he hadn't signed his new contract, and he had appetite to score goals. And for me, he, with his size, even if he's playing left wing, he should be arriving at the back post and doing that quite a bit more. But he hasn't got the appetite to get in there. There's no desire to do it. I was annoyed that he started, and then the counter argument obviously is, well, who do you put in instead of him? Some people would say McTominay. I just say, who's the striker in the youth team? Just get him in there, because that's how, ironically, that's how Rashford got his chance. He wasn't even in the squad against Midtjylland on the day of the game. Someone pulled out injured. He got onto the subs bench. Someone else got injured. He got into the team. He scored 2 goals. He won us the game against Arsenal the following weekend, and he's never really been out of the first team picture since then. And I think to some degree that probably explains his lack of technical ability and football intelligence, in that he's missed a stage of development. Some players you can do that with. Rooney didn't need to play youth team football. He was ridiculously good. Rashford isn't that good, so he's missed that stage of development. It doesn't excuse his lack of appetite. So we've got a player on 350 grand a week who's technically not very good, has very low football intelligence, and doesn't apply himself, which is a big problem. And I'm going to talk about him again when I've done the review of the game. The standout player for me was Bruno. He didn't play brilliantly well, but he showed for the ball. He tracks back. He works hard. He's constantly on the move, trying to make things happen. His ball retention was good. When Amrabat went on his forays forward, it was often Bruno that slotted into the left back position. He got an assist. And I think criticism of him is fair at times, but yesterday John O'Kane put on Twitter that he doesn't make 5 and 10 yard passes, unless I'm seeing it differently. All he did on Wednesday night was make 5 and 10 yard passes. He was very disciplined in his performance. So other than the goal, which obviously was a longer pass which created the goal. So I think at times you can just repeat the same thing about someone even when in a particular occasion it's not true. We all have our favourites. We all have biases for and against players. But I thought even on a day when he wasn't great, he still looked our most dangerous player. He had a really good shot with the outside of his right foot, which was unlucky not to go in. He's far and away our best player. And has the commitment levels and desire that you need as well. So we got through. That was the main thing. One thing I will say about this team is they score a lot of late goals, and that's the feature of a team that sticks at it, even though they've been accused, obviously, this season of doing the opposite of that, of downing tools, of not being strong enough. And I think there is an element of that, but they have it in them to keep going to the end and getting late goals. And this season we've got a lot of them. The draw is a bit of a disaster for me. At least we're at home, but I think we needed to avoid City, Liverpool, and Newcastle away. I think we'd have been fine with Newcastle at home, but it's a really tough draw. That we've got the circus around Klopp and all the crap that goes with that. And I am quite superstitious, and this is where the parallels with 1990 end. In 1990, in the FA Cup run, we played away from home every round. We didn't play any of the big boys, and up until this point, that's been the same. But we're at home, we're against one of the big boys. I think what you'd say about 1990 is that if we played Liverpool in the quarter-final then, Liverpool would be big favourites, because at that point they were dominating English football. But I think we'd have given them a really good game and potentially even beaten them, because that 1990 team, as poor as it was capable of raising its game, and we had a good record against Liverpool actually around that sort of time, and was capable of raising its game in those types of games. Our team's not great now, and we don't look like we are capable of raising our game. We went and got a draw with a very pragmatic approach at Anfield before Christmas, which was a really solid result, but that was part of the bus and was a very disciplined performance. In a cup game, you've got to win it. I don't think extra time's any good to us. So hopefully Rasmus will be back, and I think as it gets nearer, I'll get more optimistic. That's what tends to happen for me. But I think that might be the end of the story in the FA Cup, unfortunately. On to the video yesterday that Marcus Rashford put out to the world. He's missed the point completely for me, in that his PR team need to take note that if you want to get sympathy from people and for people to be on your client's side, you need to show some humility. You need to take some responsibility for the mistakes you have made and not just blame everybody else. And what that looked like was a smug, arrogant, self-obsessed person that wants to blame everyone apart from himself. He's talking about the media, and he's talking about things being exaggerated and blaming that for the view that people have of him. I don't care what the media say. I've got my own pair of eyes. I don't care that you went out on the piss in Belfast. So what? Don't care that you were out in a nightclub after we got beat by City. So what? I've spoke before. George Best could go and shag around the night before a game, be absolutely leathered, turn up, skin the fullback 3-4 times over, score 2 goals, assist 3 goals, and be the darling of the Stretford end. If you're doing it on the pitch, no one cares, within reason, about what you do off the pitch. But the media don't tell me or inform me, don't insult my intelligence about the fact that you walk around the pitch like you don't care. You have the worst body language in the team. You don't track back. You bottle out of 50-50 challenges, and you blatantly look like you don't want to be there. So the part that annoyed me the most was when he said, when people start questioning my commitment to Man United, I have to say something. I very much question your commitment to Man United, and that's nothing to do with the media. That's to do with what I see with my own eyes. So don't insult my intelligence and try and put it on the media. Mate sent me a text message earlier on with, I don't know if it's someone from Twitter, who spoke about David Beckham. And it's the brilliant comparison. David Beckham was absolutely, metaphorically raped and pillaged by everybody in England after the 1998 World Cup. He was treated appallingly. He was treated in a way that now I think probably is looked back on from people in the game that probably think, that was too much. That was shameful what happened to him. Every single time he stepped onto a pitch, he gave everything he had. He performed. He was getting death threats. He was getting things sent in the mail to him. He was going through something that nobody should have to go through. And he had a brilliant season because on the pitch, he went and performed. And I know the media presented him in a certain light, but as fans, we had his back because he went and did what he was expected to do on the pitch. And that's not always about playing well. That's about giving everything you've got. And there's some tool on Twitter yesterday saying we used to stick up for our own in the Man United fan base. What's it come to? Alluding to the fact that some United fans have abandoned Rashford. I'll stick up for any United player who gives everything for the shirt. Any Man United player. And that includes Fred. That includes Gabriel Obertan. It can be anybody. It doesn't matter how of their ability. Ability isn't what we're talking about here. Going out on the piss isn't what we're talking about here. Lack of application and lack of deserving of your status is what we're talking about here. So don't get the two things confused. As I said the other day, and I stand by it, and actually his videos reiterated it even more, he is a disgrace and he shouldn't play for Manchester United. So some people might lap that PR video up. Some people might say it shows a softer, more vulnerable side or whatever. It doesn't, to me. It doesn't at all. Just trying to blame everybody else. Nah, not having it. Just shows his character even more, and illuminates to the world that he shouldn't be on the stage that he's at. Mark Goldbridge said some interesting things yesterday, actually, which I thought were very, very succinct and very well put and very carefully put. And he said, he thinks maybe the status he's got is too much for him. The position he's been thrust into almost is he can't cope with it. He's not got what it takes to cope with it. Okay, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But so then the club or he need to make sure that then he finds a level where he does feel okay, because I don't want anyone to be depressed or unhappy or not wanting to play the game or feel hounded or feel got out or anything like that. If that's the way someone feels, that's not nice for them at all. No one should feel like that, no matter how much money you're on a week, and no one should feel, um, I think Goldberg used the word depressed, but if you are, then it's your responsibility to do something about it. And no one's putting a gun to his head to take the money that he's on. No one's putting a gun to his head to play for Man United. He can go and play somewhere else. But as I say, that video isn't someone that's depressed. That video is someone that's arrogant beyond words. I've given that far more airtime than I intended to, but what can I say? It annoys me. There's not a big preview to do for the derby. I think it could be a very, very, very long afternoon. The best chance we've got is that we sit tight and we ride our luck. The goalie has the game of his life. We get loads of fortune, and we hang in there for a 0-0. I don't believe we'll score, but we're not very good at soaking up pressure, especially against the quality of team that we're up against. So I'm not really asked about City. I've said it before, that they've been put together by ill-gotten gains. They are the chavs down the road that won the lottery, and they can lord it over us. That's fine. Right now, the gap between the two teams, when you actually look at what we've got and what they've got on the pitch, is just absolutely astronomical. And we're in the biggest underdogs you could have, almost, going into a derby like this. But I still maintain that as a club, as two different clubs, we're not the underdog. We're the big brother, and they're the little bit of shit under our shoe, and they always will be. And I hope the better times are ahead for United, but I do nor will I ever set the criteria for better times being ahead that we have to somehow try and match or emulate them, because they've done it through ill-gotten means. They're cheats. So I don't want to emulate them. We never need to emulate them. We've set precedents and records that they'll never ever surpass. No one cares about their treble. No one cares about anything they do. Our treble is still spoken about now in 2024, 25 years later, than theirs is, and theirs was a few months ago. Ours is still more well thought of. We are, unfortunately, a team that has to point to our history because we've had nothing recently that's any good. But hopefully, as I say, better times around the corner, and the potential of our football club is ridiculous. And if we get anywhere near on the level playing field with them, we'll annihilate them. But right now, it's not like that. So I ain't losing any sleep over it. If we get knobbed, we get knobbed. And I'll take my medicine, and I'll go to work on Monday afternoon, because I'm giving myself Monday morning off. Bright and breezy, whatever. So a bit wide ranging there. A few different things have been covered. Hopefully it all makes sense. And if you have any comments, please do comment. Please subscribe, like, etc. Glazers out.